So, welcome to the first Tabletop Talk. Tabletop Talks are designed for people who are completely new to Advanced Squad Leader. Might also be of some help to people who are transitioning from playing Starter Kit to playing full ASL rules, albeit those people will obviously know some of the basics here already. First thing I want to say is there are some excellent introductory video series on YouTube, and they tend to follow a certain pattern. There'll be a video on movement, there'll be a video on fire, there'll be a video on breaking and routing, and those are very, very good, and they're really, really good in-depth deep dives into how to play those aspects of the game. What I thought was sort of missing are videos that simply show people how to play more in a way that is more similar to the way that you do it when you meet somebody face to face and you're teaching them how to play. So what I'm going to do shortly is I'm going to introduce this invented scenario. Only exists for the purposes of illustrating rules. I'm going to introduce that. Then I'm going to run through the rules. Very, very basic, very, very short. Just the basics that you need for things to make sense as they're happening. And then we'll play through this 3.5 turn scenario, and I will explain everything that I'm doing. A little bit of talk about tactics, but the focus really being on the rules. So this scenario, and this is very much something that I tend to do when I'm teaching somebody new how to play the game. Simply take out a board more or less randomly, take out a few counters, create a very, very simple situation, and just kind of like run through the basics. So this is the Russian order of battle here, and they're going to be defending in this scenario. Over here we can see that there is the German order of battle. They're going to be attacking, and this is the turn counters. There are 3 full turns, and then there is a half turn at the end. The Germans move first, so that after the German turn 4, the game will be over. The Russians don't get a turn 4. This German force has to set up within 2 hexes of this red star, which means essentially that they're setting up in this sort of little farm compound here. The Germans set up second, so after the Russians, and they set up on or to the left of hex row H. I say left because I haven't decided which direction would be north, but on or to the left of hex row H. At the end of the game, this is the victory condition, at the end of the game, the Germans win if they control this farm building. Okay, this farm building at that point, at the end of the game, if they control it, they win. If the Russians are in control of that building, part of it, then the Russians win, and it's as simple as that. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the Russians. Just explain briefly the significance of what's on the counters. This is a Russian squad. It's the most basic unit sort of the game, really. The first number here, the first 4 represents its firepower. So it has a firepower of 4. Clearly, the higher the firepower, the better. This the second 4 represents its range. It means that this unit here can fire at full firepower 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way out to this hex, or indeed to this hex, or anywhere within 4 hex range. However, you can always double the range of these units, but it halves the firepower. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 can fire all the way out to here, subject to there being no line of sight obstacles, but it would only be a 2 firepower attack. Now the Russians also have a support weapon. This is a light machine gun, signified by the LMG. Now it has also got these 2 numbers, which are equate to the 4 and the 4 of the squad. The 2 is the firepower, and the 6 is the range. This light machine gun, in order to be operated, has to be in the possession of a multi-man counter. In this case, here I'm giving it to a Russian squad. It means that this light machine gun can fire separately or together with the squad. So it can fire potentially a 2 firepower shot all the way out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, or a 1 firepower shot all the way out to 12. It can do that on its own, or it can be done in combination. So there is a third number, of course, and it's this number here. It's the 7 that these squads have. Now that is their morale. The higher that number, the better, and we'll talk about morale when we're in game. This unit here is not a multi-man counter; it's a single-man counter. It represents a single unit, perhaps a particularly effective sergeant from the platoon, perhaps. You certainly don't have as many as there would be corporals and lance corporals and sergeants and things in a real platoon. They represent standout individuals. The 8 is his morale, so he has a higher morale than the units that are around him, and he has a -1 modifier. Now, the most significant thing about that is usually used as a dice roll modifier, so it reduces the dice roll that units that he is directing roll. So if this unit here with the light machine gun is stacked with the 8-1 leader, and they're firing 1, 2, 3, 4 out to this wood, well, they've got 4 firepower from the squad, another 2 from the light machine gun, so they can attack with a 6 firepower. Roll a dice. That leader is able to provide a modifier the negative modifier makes that shot more effective. Again, we'll look at individual shots in much more detail when we come to take some later on. So, how are we going to set up? Well, in the same way that this leader provides a bonus to firepower, this wood and this building and this stone wall provide defensive bonuses to when they are shot at. So if I was to put a Russian squad in here, if he's fired at, there's 1 is added to the dice roll because he's in a forest, and that gives him a degree of protection from the shot. Similar with the wooden building. Somebody that fires at a wooden building, he's going to get +2. It gives more protection than the wood, so that's a good place to kind of be if you think that the German's going to be firing at you. The third squad might go in here, for example. This is a stone wall. Any fire that crosses this depiction of this wall is going to get +2. Stone walls provide +2 protection. This is a hedge that provides +1. So I quite like that all these units are kind of quite close together. It means they're able to protect each other. Kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for the Germans to take them on one by one. Probably makes sense to put this one here because this position here doesn't have any really good lines of sight. If this unit wants to fire in this sort of direction, he can't. This stone wall is going to literally block his line of sight. He can't see anything moving from that direction, nor can he fire at it. This is a better position really because he can see sort of down here and around this a little bit. Having said that, this position could be a little bit more improved if I take a level 1 building counter and I put it underneath this squad. He's now on level 1. He's essentially upstairs in this building. Now he can see over this wall now and fire at units approaching from this direction, so this suddenly becomes a much better position. He can't see over the wood, he's actually at the same level as the wood, so that doesn't really help. He doesn't help to put firepower in sort of this direction, but it will help, and you'll see why when we're in game. It helps him as well firing at units in this grain. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I like that these units are very close together. I'm now going to take the machine gun and we're going to give it to this unit here. And there's 2 reasons why we're going to do that. The first is that we kind of don't know which way the Germans are going to come. They haven't set up yet. They might come this way, or they might come this way, or they might come through the middle. And by having him here, it's kind of possible for us to sort of move in either direction. And this is our most powerful weapon, so we are going to use that to we're going to keep him with the machine gun, because he's going to be able to sort of multiply its impact and its effectiveness. Now, there we are, we're set up. The hope is that we can fire at the Germans as they approach, but as they get, and that's going to be very important. But as the Germans get within range to assault these buildings, we'll kind of fall back to O6 and perhaps P6 for the sort of the final defence. And we'll try to be downstairs for that, so it gives us an extra turn to sort of move upstairs for the very last ditch defence on turn 4. So that's how they're going to set up. Now to the German setup. So we'll see that they have 447 squads as well, very, very similar in ability to the Russian squads, but they also have 467s, and these are a better squad because they have a range, as you can see, of 6. So for example, if I set up some German units here and they're 467s, they can fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 6 hex range. They can fire at full firepower against the Russian squad in the woods here. But the Russian squad in the wood there is going to be firing at a much lower 2 firepower when if he's able to sort of like return fire. So we're going to put that 467 there. With the machine gun, this unit can now fire with 9 firepower. Most people, certainly most people in the UK, play with combat results table, or the IFE chart as it's called, which rounds down, and this would round down to an 8, although there is the incremental fire table that some people prefer to use, and then you'd be able to use all of those 9 points. You can see the range of that machine gun is 12, easily good enough to fire at this unit. So this is going to be an 8 firepower attack. We'll look at the IFT table a little bit later. Well, I can make that bigger because I can stack up to 3 squads without any sort of negative effects. I suppose there is a negative effect in that they possibly could all be affected by the same shot. We'll talk more about that as a kind of a tactical thing. But we're allowed to stack 3 squads together, as many support weapons as they have freely. We can also put a leader with them, so I'm going to put the -1 leader with them. He's going to effectively make this opening shot of the game where we fire at this this Russian unit here in defending the woods and sort of the northern part of the Russian position. It's going to make it very effective indeed, because while this Russian unit is gaining a +1 for the protection of the wood, the German unit firing, because of the effective leadership of the Singerman cans there, is going to be subtracting 1. So this is ASL would call this a flat shot, because it's not affected by the roll. Sorry, by dice roll modifiers. And we got the second line, the sort of slightly less good quality German units here. And we're going to think of this as the assault element. So we're going to put them initially behind this wood. We're going to give them a leader. And the reason we're putting them there is that at the beginning of the game, we'll see how this works in a moment, we're going to see these units gaining concealment. Okay, so which just means that they're much better at brushing off fire, but it also gives them advantages in close combat and such like. So that's going to be our setup for the Germans. So we're now going to go through something of a sort of pre-game sequence, I suppose. The first part of that is that, as you can see, we've put out sniper counters. I'm going to talk much more about snipers if they become important in the game. For now, it's perhaps sufficient to say that they need to be put close to a number of units from the other side. There is some very, very specific rules, but I don't want to go into them this early in the kind of the learning sort of process. But these sniper counters are out there, and they may become involved in the game. They may not. The next thing that we need to do is we need to decide if any of these units at setup gain concealment. Very, very simple rule. If an enemy unit can see you, you don't gain concealment. These two units clearly have a line of sight to each other. You can see that that all that intervenes between them is open ground. These units can see each other. They don't gain concealment. Look at this unit here. He's going to gain concealment. The only German units around are this unit's the other side of a wood. Clearly they can't see each other, and indeed there's a wood in the way of the line of sight between these two units. So this unit here is going to gain concealment. This unit looks a little bit more complex because we're looking at whether this unit clearly cannot see this Russian unit, but this one kind of looks to me like it can. But I'm not 100% sure. So we take a quick line of sight check, and as you can see, those two units can see each other. So this unit here does not gain concealment. Concealment provides this unit here with some protective measures when things fire at it, and give it a big advantage actually, like close combat. This group of units here, they clearly can't be seen from any of the Russian units on the other side, which is partly by the German setup there. So this unit can gain concealment. Brilliant. And now we're ready to begin the game. Before we do anything, the first thing that we need to do is we need to roll to see if there is any change to the weather. For that, we simply roll 2 dice. It's very unlikely there'll be any change. This is a game specifically designed to not have the weather having much impact on the game, really. A double 1 or a double 6, there's a possibility of something happening that impacts on the weather. And we've rolled a 7, which of course means that there is no change to the environmental conditions of the weather in any way. So I'm going to just reset this to the beginning of the German turn. Okay, so there is a turn sequence. So the Germans have a turn 1, then the Russians will have a turn 1, and then we'll move this on to turn 2. The Germans will work their way through all of these phases when they come back. When they get to close combat phase, which is the final phase, we then start it again for the Russians. So the rally phase, the Germans are going to take no actions, the Russians are going to take no actions. They're ready to begin the... actually, that's not quite true. The Germans are going to try to deploy one of their squads. See, they've got 3 squads in this wood. It's possible to, in your own phase, to deploy a squad into half squads if it's stacked with a leader. They need to pass a morale check. You can see they got a morale check of 7. So the Germans need to roll a 7 or less, which they achieve. So this unit can now become 2 half squads. They're still concealed, but that's going to give the Russians more targets to fire at, and these half squads are lower value targets. So these half squads are really good units to kind of charge at the Russians, get them to fire, and then move your higher value units perhaps behind them. So we've done the rally phase, one action that the Germans took. Now we're going to move on to the prep fire phase. Prep fire, any units that prep fire are not able to move in the movement phase that's coming up. So we have to think very carefully. We don't want to fire things that we want to move. At the moment, we're not really keen to move this unit because as soon as it moves, it could come under fire from this Russian squad. So the first thing we want to do really is to fire at that, and hopefully the Germans are hoping to have some sort of an effect that's going to neutralise that unit or at least reduce its effectiveness. So how do we work out the shot? Well, the first thing is, are the units firing in range? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we checked this earlier on. We can see that all of these units have a range of 6 or more. The squads have a range of 6. The medium machine gun has a range of 12, so this shot is well within its range. We simply add up the firepower. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, plus 5 for the medium machine gun gives us a 16 firepower shot. Now we can have a look at the IFE, the infantry fire table, And there are columns for 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, 20, on up to 36. So we're going to be on the 16 firepower table. It goes down to the sort of the next low, rounded down to the next lowest sort of table. However, so we're going to roll 2 dice on that table. However, they are going to be modified by the TEM, the terrain effects modifier, the protective effects of this unit being in a wood. That's so that we're going to add 1 to the dice roll, which is going to give the Russians a degree of protection. But because this shot is being directed by a -1 leader, that's going to make the attack more effective by reducing the dice rolls. So there's going to be a net kind of even effect on the dice roll. We're going to add 1, but we're also going to subtract 1, and we're going to see what happens on the 16 column of the IFE table. Let's just see what happens. So we're going to roll 2 dice now as the Germans. So they rolled a 10. There's this thing about cowering here. We're not going to talk about it because it's not going to happen in this instance, but no doubt that'll crop up in subsequent shots. So we've rolled a 10. We add 1, we subtract 1, we've rolled a 10. I just rolled the dice again accidentally. So 16 firepower column, look down for a 10. It's a relatively high roll for the Germans, and a 10 on the 16 is an NMC. That means a normal morale check. So a normal morale check means that the Russians have to roll against their morale, which is 7, and they have to roll equal to or less than their morale in order to avoid a negative effect. 6, 7, 8, well, that's higher than their morale, so this unit is now going to break. To do that, we simply turn it over onto its broken side and add a DM counter. DM counter means that they've kind of only just broken and it's more difficult for them to rally initially. Right, that unit now being broken is completely ineffective. It's not going to have a very big impact on this game at all now, because it may come back. There's the ways that it can rally, but in this turn, it's a dangerously vulnerable position. So that's the end of the prep fire phase. No other units are going to fire. Clearly, these don't have line of sight to anything, and in any case, we want to move to assault these Russian units. So next phase, movement phase. First thing then is that we're going to send some units around this way, because Germans are sensing this side. The defences seem very, very weak indeed. So if I just take this half squad, now obviously the Germans know that this is a half squad. Obviously the Russians don't. Now there are a number of ways that it can move. It's in this hex at the moment. It's got 4 movement factors. Every time it moves into an open ground hex, it's going to cost 1 movement factor. So 2, 3, 4, you can see it can move as far as that. However, it can declare double time and gain an additional 2 movement factors. So the Germans are going to do that. We're going to declare double time. There's some negative effects of being CX, counter exhausted, so basically being tired because you've moved quickly. But we get to be able to move that a little bit further. So he's going to move here for 1, here for 2. Russians players watching all the time because he can respond to certain types of move. 1, 2, move here for a 3, and here the German unit goes, do you know, I think I can take a shot at this guy here. I'm going to declare the shot. First thing that before he declares the shot, because he's concealed, the Russian player is trying to get him unconcealed. So he says, well, declares, I think I can see the unit there. We can simply check from the center dot of the viewing unit to the center dot of the potential target unit. We can clearly see that line is clear, so this unit loses concealment. Now, the Russian player has some choices. He can fire at him. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's long range for the Russian unit. So instead of a 4 firepower attack, if he fires at it, it's only going to be 2. Also, he's unconcealed this unit because it was moving quickly in the open, so the Russian might decide, well, this is a lower value unit, I don't know that I want to fire at it, but we're going to take the shot anyway. So this Russian unit is going to become first fired, and we are going to roll. Now, this is an interesting shot. The first thing is that the Russian unit is halved in its firepower. It's only going to be a 2 firepower shot, not a 4 firepower shot, because it's long range, it's area fire. But when a unit is moving in the open without any protective TEM, there is a -1 automatically added to the dice roll. Also, when the unit that is being fired at, the target unit, is moving sort of more than 1 hex, we call this non-assault movement. The only moving 1 hex is called assault movement. Non-assault movement also gets a -1. So in fact, we're going to apply a -2 modifier to this shot. So on the column, on the 2 firepower column, we roll on this table, but we are applying a -2 to the shot. So actually, there's a fairly good chance that this is going to have an effect, because an 8 with -2 would take us down to a 6 with pin task checks. There is a possibility of this shot having an impact on an 8 or less. So IFT, we roll 5, 6, 7, -2, it's only a 5, it's a final 5. On the 2 column, a 5 equates to a normal morale check. So this unit here, 7 morale, has to roll for a morale check, and they've rolled 3, which is a really low number. Now, because of that, this unit passes its morale check. It's going to be able to continue to move. However, we've also rolled the Russian sniper number. So the Russian gets to see whether their sniper is activated. That's the number here. So whenever the Germans roll a 3, this sniper number is different in every game. That each scenario will set these sniper numbers. Whenever the Germans roll a 3, there's a possibility that the Russian sniper is activated. I'm going to roll 1 dice. On a 1 or a 2, there is an effect. There's a 1. Okay. So I wasn't expecting to bring the snipers into play this early in the game. We now have to. So one is essentially that he basically kills something. 2 is a less significant impact. But we need to find out who is affected by this deadly shot. And the first thing we have to do is work out where this sniper is going to strike. There are 3. Actually, there's 4 because the sniper as well. There are 4 potential targets for this sniper, and we don't know which of these hexes he's going to hit. We find that out by rolling 2 dice. The first dice will give us our direction, and the second one will give us the distance from where he is at the moment. 4 and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the direction. So it's going to go down in this direction, and it's going to move down 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's then going to hit the nearest unit. The nearest unit is, or the nearest hex with German units in it, is this one here. Now we don't know which of, because there are 1, 2, 3, there are 4 units in that hex. We don't know which of them is going to be impacted by this sniper roll. So it's random selection. So the German player is going to roll 1 dice and is going to, and whichever of the 4 units rolls the highest is the one that's going to be affected. So the first roll is going to be the leader. He's rolled a 6. That's not great. And then from top to bottom, so the full squad, and the half squad are going to be the subsequent rolls. Okay, so the leader is affected. Now a double 1 kills a single man counter. So this unit here is dead. KIA. Killed by the Russian sniper. Right. When a leader dies, when he's killed from whatever way, the unit and his morale is higher than the other units in the hex. They all have to take a morale check to find out if the kind of impact on the morale of the units of losing such a significant leader is perhaps really impactful. So they all have to take a morale check. So we're going to go top to bottom. All the German units in that hex are going to take this morale check from top to bottom. First one passes, second one fails it, so the second unit in there, the squad, is going to break, and the final half squad is going to survive it. Okay, so this unit here is now broken. All units, when there's a sniper check, lose concealment. Yeah. Okay, so that DM counter is there. Okay. That's very impactful on the game. That's quite a significant effect. What I'll do is I'll perhaps leave the casualties up there so people can remember what's happened.
I'd like to apologise for this very brief interruption to the video. Just wanted you to know that this video is brought to you by the YouTube channel Illuminating Rounds, which is run by Dave Ramsey and myself, Martin Barker. If you enjoy this video, feel free to check out the other videos that are available. Please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and if you would like to support the channel further, you can always check out our Patreon, which can be found from the website aslscenarioarchive.com, a fantastic resource for ASLers, and you'll find a link there to our Patreon. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of the video.
Okay, back to the movement of this unit. We're moving this unit here. He's moved 1, 2, 3. Oh, when that unit first fired at it, that hex, it was a 2 firepower shot. They halve that, it goes down to 1. They leave 1 residual firepower in that hex. Now anybody else in this movement phase who moves through that hex is going to have to take that 1 firepower shot. Right, so the Germans continue to move. Let's say they're going to move to here now because they're not keen to get hit again by the same unit. So they've now moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, the Russian broken unit here can't fire at them because they're broken, and the units in this hex, although very effective units, they also can't take a shot because the woods is in the way. Okay, so let's see what else happens. So let's say this half squad here, he's going to double time, but he's going to move this way. So he's going to move. He's going to double time because he wants to move as far as possible. Okay, and off he goes. So let's say he moves 2 to there. Now this unit can see him, potentially could fire. The Russians are sensing this isn't necessarily going to be a very effective shot from here because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's already halved because it'll be a final fire shot. It gets to shoot twice. It's already taken its first shot, so its second shot's going to be at half firepower. It's going to be a 2. It's also beyond normal range, so it's going to be halved again. It's only going to be a 1. It's also going to be affected by this grain. It's also going to be affected by the protection of the wood. It's probably not worth this guy here taking that shot. However, it might be worth the guys up here taking that shot. Now they can definitely see this move because the line of sight is going to go down this hex spine. Because they're high up, they're not at level 1. They're not going to be affected by the 2 grain hexes that the shot goes through. However, the defending unit is going to be protected by the woods. If you remember, non-assault movement. So because they're moving, they haven't said they're only going to move 1 hex and there's a special declared as an assault move. This is a non-assault move. There's a -1 to that shot. That's going to kind of negate the protection of the woods. And we also probably remember that there's a machine gun up here with a -1 leader. So this could be quite a good shot for the Russians. What's the range of it? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be long range for the squad. 5, 6. It's going to be normal range for the machine gun. So Russians are going to take that shot. Okay. All going to fire. So this is going to be first fire. And it's going to be a 6 firepower shot. It's going to be -1 for the leader, -1 for non-assault move, but +1 for the woods, so it's going to be a 4 minus 1. That's the shot, 4 minus 1. So if we get our table up, actually let's just roll and see what happens. So we have to subtract 1 from that, so it's a 6. A 6 on the 4 is a normal morale check. Okay, so the moving German unit has to take a normal morale check, and they've rolled a 3, so they've passed it, but they may have activated the sniper again. So let's see what happens, and this time it's a 5. Remember, only a 1 or a 2 causes any kind of activation. So in fact, they passed the morale check, and they haven't activated a sniper. So they've moved 2 to there. They've got 6, so they've got 4 more to go. Grain is 1.5. So we've got 2, 3, 4. I forgot to put the residual in there. There'd be 2 residual. Remember, it's a 4 firepower attack. It's halved, so there is 2 residual there. If any German units move in this movement phase through there, then they will have to take that 2 firepower shot. So it's 2 to there, another 1.5 to move into there. So we're now at 3.5. It's going to be a 5 to here. And we're going for it, so we're going to go for a 6 to there. Now the Russian player might not be completely sure if he can see the Russian unit in this hex, but they're going to declare the shot. If it turns out that line of sight is blocked by this wood, I don't think it is, but if it turns out it is, the shot goes ahead. You have to roll, and there are potential negative effects, for example activating a sniper, but it can't have an effect on the unit. But we're going to find out now if that unit has a line of sight, and indeed, that's not it, it's that one, isn't it? Indeed, does have a line of sight. Now, so this is going to be a 4. Now it's going to be halved because this unit is already first fired. 1, 2, 3, 4, but it is in normal range, so it's going to be a 2 firepower shot. It's going to be a -1 for movement in the open, and there's going to be another -1 for non-assault movements. This is a 2 minus 2 shot. Okay, right, this time cowering counts. So if a firing unit doesn't have a leader directing the shot, and they subsequently roll doubles like this, the shot cowers. And what that means is that it goes down 1 column of effectiveness, and the unit is automatically final fired, even if he was only taking a first fire shot. So this unit is now going to be marked as a final fire unit. We can take 2 off this, so they've rolled a final 6, but only on the 1 column. On the 1 column, a 6 is no effect. Had they have been on the 2 column, in other words, if it hadn't cowered, it would have been a pintails check, which would have been a better result for the Russians. Okay, so there's no effect. So this unit is unaffected by that shot. However, it doesn't leave residual either, because it's gone down to a 1. If you halve 1, it's below 1. There's no residual firepower left there. So this unit would be free to continue to move, but it's actually expended all of its movement factors. It's there at 6. Now, we've got an interesting situation here. We've got 1 more German squad to move. It's lost concealment because of the sniper, but the Russians have largely exhausted their fire options. This unit here can't really fire again unless somebody moves adjacent to him. The units up here can fire again, but if the Germans kind of like come round from this sort of direction, well, they can't see that movement, so it might be that this unit can make some good progress. However, he can't move into this hex, because if he moves into that hex, he'll have to take the residual firepower attack, the same with this position over here. So what this German unit is going to do, let's just take him out for a moment. He's going to double time, so let's put the double time thing on him. Now, he could move into this woods here for 2 movement factors, but We can move a bit more quickly than that and still sort of be, near the woods. We can actually move in bypass. You can see that I5 here has a piece of open ground around the north side of that of that woods. So instead of actually moving into the woods, he can move in bypass. He can move along this hex side and then this hex side, and he can move 1 or 2 hex sides, avoiding the woods. You can also do this with buildings, as long as the depiction doesn't touch the hex side, for just 1 movement factor. So it's actually only costing him 1 movement factor to bypass this hex here. And he can do the same for J4. And by bypassing it, staying in J4, he's going to avoid the 1 firepower residual over there. So he's moved 1, 2, moves a 3 to there. Now he doesn't want to get, he just wants to get to this wood as quickly as possible. 1, 2, so he moves a 3 to there. Now he's feeling safe. This unit can see him, but he's expended all of his fire options, so there's nothing much that he can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to move 5 to there. Okay, and that is the end of the movement phase. So we'll take those move counters off. We can also remove all defensive fire markers and all residual. We shouldn't have taken off defensive fire markers. That was a mistake. Residual. We should take the residual off at the end of the movement phase. Right, it's defensive fire. So any unit that hasn't fired can now fire. Any unit that is marked with a first fire counter could fire at something that's adjacent. I took the fire counters off, but actually I think we can remember that these units have fired and they're not going to be able to fire at anything now. Now it's advancing fire. And this means that any German units that haven't fired in the prep fire phase, even if they've moved, can now fire in the final fire phase, but they have to do it as area fire, so halved. Well, these 3 units here have all moved, but they didn't fire in the prep fire phase. They're all eligible to fire in the advancing fire phase, and they're going to fire at this broken unit to see if they can do further damage to it. So they can form a multi-hex fire group because they're all adjacent to each other and they can all see the target. They can declare that they're all going to fire at the same target together. Okay, so this guy here is going to be, can contribute 4 to the attack. It's actually doubled because he's adjacent. So when you're adjacent to something you're firing, you double. So let's say it's an 8. He can add another 2 in. He can add another 2 in. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, potentially got 12. Halved because it's advancing fire for the area fire shot. It's going to be a 6. Plus 1 because at least one of the units firing is CX. They all are, but so we add 1 to the dice roll for that, and we're going to add another 1 because the defending unit is in the woods. So this is going to be a 6 plus 2 shot. So we roll the dice. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Add another 2. 12 is the final shot. It's a very, very high roll, and as we'll see on a 6 firepower attack, a 12 has no effect whatsoever. Okay, so there was no real impact to that advancing fire shot, but it could have been. It's probably worth taking it. If this was a more complex game, we might have put advancing fire counters on these units so that we didn't come back to them and take another shot. But it's quite a simple scenario. Probably don't really need to do that. We're now moving on to the rout phase. Starting with the attack. Now we can remove prep fire counters. Starting with the attacker, we need to apply the rout rules to any units that are broken. So this unit here is broken. Now he can rout. He can move to a safer location, perhaps move to a location with a single man counter who's going to try to rally him. But he doesn't need to, this unit, because he can't see any Russian units. He's in relatively safe terrain. He's going to stay where he is. Over here, this Russian unit has to rout, has to run away. He's adjacent to a known enemy unit. He has to rout. He has to move towards. He can't move closer to known enemy units, and he needs to move towards rally terrain. Rally terrain is woods or buildings. So he could rout to this hex here. That seems a bit crazy because he's still going to be in quite a lot of danger from these approaching German units. Or he can move back into the building, and that sounds like a really good idea, particularly because there's a leader in there who might be able to help him to rally. So he has 6 movement factors when he's routing. So if he moves 2 back into the stone building, he can move 1, 2. He can move 4 into P6, and then he could go up the stairs for 1. So that's what he's going to do: 2, 4, and then up the stairs for 6. Now what he's trying to do is to get as far away from the German units as possible, and next turn he's going to actually, do you know what, I'm going to change that. He needs to be with the leader. Sorry. Okay, so he's going to move 2 into the building, and then 3, because it only costs you 1 to go up the stairs, 3 to move up the stairs into that hex. That means that at the beginning of his rally phase, there's going to be a leader there available to try to rally him. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the advance phase. All phasing units, so all of the Russian units, except the broken ones, of course, get the opportunity of moving 1 hex in any direction. So this unit here is going to move into the wood. So we can see that this squad is now right adjacent to the victory condition buildings. The Germans have made all that progress. There's no guarantee he's going to be able to stay there. There's a very powerful force upstairs there that will have something to say about that incursion. But it looks like the Germans are in control of the woods. 2 half squads are going to do something very similar. They're just going to kind of move forward. And this group, they could just advance to I3, just a little bit closer, so when the time comes they can help storm the building by being a little bit closer to it. But there is a danger that this unit could fire at them too flat in the open and break the whole stat. Probably they're going to move over to here, and what they're doing is I think they're going to get some protection from the stone wall, but they're going to get a better shot at this unit here if this unit decides to stay where it is, and they can still, I think, see all of the woods, so they can still cover all of that. Okay, that's the end of the advance phase. It's now the close combat phase. We're not going to do anything. There's no close combat. That would only happen if a German unit had advanced into a hex that it shared with a Russian unit. And that brings us to the end of the German turn 1. The next bit is that we get concealment growth. This unit here can be seen, so he doesn't gain concealment. This unit here can be seen because he's adjacent to the Russians in the building, so he can't gain concealment. But these units might. No Russian units can see them. If they were in concealment terrain, they would automatically gain concealment if no Russian units could see them. Because they're in open ground, they have to roll. There are some modifiers. They roll 1 dice. So we'll roll 1 dice in a moment. They have to roll less than a 6, but we have to add 1 because they're CX, and we have to add the number of figures on the counter. If it's a half squad, it's 2. If it was a full squad, it would be 3. If it's a single man counter, it would be 1. So we're going to be adding 1, 2, 3 to the dice roll. So this unit here has rolled a 6, so he doesn't gain concealment, and this one over here clearly doesn't gain concealment. Okay, and that is the end. So it's the German turn 1, so we can flip that over. We're in the right place here. The first thing that they have to do, of course, is roll for weather. 2 dice, no effect, and we are in the rally phase. Now, we have some broken units. So the Russians, they're the phasing side. They can attempt to rally units. They've got this guy here. He's 7 morale, so he has to roll less or equal to his morale in order to rally. We have to add 4 to the dice roll because he's DM, but we subtract 1 because he's in rally terrain, which is a building. Sorry, yes, we subtract 1 because he's in a building, which is rally terrain, and we subtract another because this rally attempt is being directed by this -1 leader. So we need to roll 7 plus 2 or less, if that makes sense. Okay, so we've rolled a 7, add 2, 8, 9. 9 is higher than our morale, so we don't rally in this instance. However, we would normally lose our DM status, so at the beginning of the German turn 2, we'd have a really good chance of rallying, but we don't lose it because we're adjacent to a German unit. So whenever any German unit becomes adjacent to a broken Russian unit, or vice versa, they become DM again, and it's the same if they're fired at by a shot that could be effective. Right, Germans also have broken unit, but it's not their turn, so they're not able to do anything with that guy. Actually, if he was with a leader, he would be able to attempt to rally. Okay, prep fire. So Russians going to take a prep fire shot. They are at level 1, but they can see the guys in the woods adjacent. We've got 4, 5, 6. And we can double that because they're adjacent. So this is actually going to be a 12 firepower shot, which is quite, it's quite high. If we include the leader, we'll add a -1 to the dice, cancelling out the +1 that the German target here has. So this is going to be a 12 flat. Doesn't cower because it's being directed by a leader. And we have rolled an 8 on a 12 is a 1 morale check. Okay, so it's good that we've got this here because this allows us to see how the 1 morale checks and the 2 morale checks work. So the 1 simply refers to the +1 that needs to be added to the dice roll, whatever it is the Germans roll during this morale check. So they need a 7, but they've got to add 1 to the dice roll. 8, 9, this unit is broken. Actually, the +1 didn't make any difference this time. CX comes off, broken units are never CX. Broken. But these guys have prep fired. Okay, right. So that's going to be the end of the prep fire phase for the Russians. It's now the movement phase. Now they've only got this unit here. And we could prep fire, try and take a shot at these, though there's probably a good chance that he can't see them. He could try and take a shot at these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's long range, they're behind a wall. But he's almost certainly getting quite a powerful shot back. So what this unit really wants to do is move into a position where they're not going to have to take any defensive fire shots. So in fact he's going to assault move, so he's only moving 1 hex back to this position here. He can declare an assault move if it's only 1 position, 1 hex, or possibly going up the stairs or down the stairs, those sorts of, just 1 position. He can declare an assault move. It still costs him 2 movement points, but he can't move any further. He can't spend the rest of those movement points, and it means he doesn't get the -1 modifier to any shots against him. Okay, so I think that's all we need to know about assault moving at the moment. Okay, so that's the end of the Russian movement phase. It's now German defensive fire phase. Oh, forgot to do this. Over here, this Russian unit in the rally phase should have lost DM status. So everybody loses DM status after the rally phase. It means that German unit is much more likely to rally in his own phase in a moment. So we finished movement, so we're into the final fire phase. Now these German units can't see any Russian units, they can't fire. Guys up here, they can't fire. This guy here is broken, so he cannot fire. So there is in fact no defensive fire. Next phase, advancing fire phase. These guys can't advancing fire because they prepped. This guy can't advancing fire because he can't see anybody, because this building is in the way. He can't fire against these broken units. So we're on to the rout phase. Okay. Now, the guys upstairs in O6 do not need to rout. They are actually not adjacent to the German units in here. They're not adjacent to them because they could not theoretically advance into the same place, because you first would have to go into the downstairs location and then move up into the upstairs location. That's 2 moves. So they're not actually adjacent, even though just in terms of hexes they kind of appear to be. So actually the Russians choose not to rout. Is that a good idea? Do you know what? We'll move them back to demonstrate a few things. So they are going to rout back. Russians going to rout back to here. They can rout because they're DM. You can always rout if you're DM. You have the option if you're not adjacent to another unit. Right, the Germans do not have to rout because they are not adjacent to a known enemy unit. However, they could rout, but they're not allowed to rout into this hex, because by doing that they would be moving nearer to known enemy units, because they're moving into the same hex as the Russians that are just up the stairs. They could move into 0-5, but it's difficult to see any real benefit to them moving into 0-5. So what they could do is they can rout back to perhaps a wood over here where they might have a better chance of rallying. It has to be the nearest 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 5. So they're going to choose to go back to this one. 1, 2, 3, 5. Now, I don't think there's any possibility of interdiction. Okay, so what I'm really looking for is if theoretically Russian units could take a shot at them while they were moving, that might not be quite as straightforward than moving back there. But so I don't want to go into routes in detail at the moment. He's moved back to kind of a nearest rally terrain hex. He could have gone here, could have gone here, could even potentially have gone here. Actually, 1, 2, 3. I think he may have to go there. So they have to go to the nearest. So 1, 2. Oh, that's 4. That's right, yeah. Yeah, so they go to there. 4. See how the Germans are kind of to some extent lost control of where they want him to go. They kind of want him to go over here because they're probably safer over here. They got more chance of rallying and getting back into the game. Don't really want them there, but that's where they are. That's where they're stuck. So that's the route. So now we're going to advances. Right. In the advance phase, this leader is going to come back to here, because what he's hoping to do is rally the broken unit in that hex upstairs. Now they can go straight across from level 1 to level 1. They can go straight across. They're all just connected. There's a stairwell in every hex, and you can move freely up on the upper level. This unit here is going to move into 0-6. So remember, they're going to move 1 hex in the advance phase. Moved into there, and that's the end of the advance phase. Okay. Now the leader here can't be seen from anywhere, so he can gain concealment, but broken units are never concealed. The units in this hex are also going to gain concealment because no one can see them, and they're in concealment terrain, i.e. buildings. And it's the Russian player turn, so the Germans don't get this opportunity. Now, let's get rid of the move counters. Now, the interesting thing now is that they are actually in quite a good position. These, I just meant to have a concealment counter here. Russians are suddenly in quite a good position, because if these people try to these units here try to advance or move somehow into these hexes, they're going to face two squads that are concealed. They've got the benefit of concealment. The German half squads do not. Okay, so there we are. We've reached the end of. So I missed out the close combat phase, but again, the only bit that's relevant really is the concealment gain bit. Okay. We move on to turn 2, Axis. Okay. Wind. No change. Rally actions. Now, the Germans, and indeed the Russians, okay, so the phasing player and the non-phasing player, can try to rally any units stacked with a leader. The phasing player only can attempt one self-rally, i.e. a rally in a hex where there isn't a leader. Probably best for the Germans to try to rally in H5, because he's got a much better chance of rallying, because he's not DM, than the unit over in O3. So H5 will rally on a 7. You have to add 1 to the dice roll if it's a self-rally, but you subtract 1 if it's in a woods or a building in rally terrain. So 7 allows that unit to rally. So unit over here loses his DM status for now. In here we've got a DM unit rally on a 3, because you've got the +4 for the DM, but a 5 for the building and a 6 for the leader. If the Germans could see the leader, he'd lose concealment. Trying to rally units is a concealment loss. Rally. Okay, so that's too high. The Russian unit loses DM, but remains broken. Okay, so we're now moving to the prep fire phase. I believe all the German units have no targets in their line of sight. Then going to move to the movement phase. Now, units of the CX cannot CX in their movement phase, so that CX comes off when we move them or when they prep fire. But they can't CX now. Well, we probably don't want to particularly. So what we're going to do is we're going to assault move into here. It costs us 2 movement points. Just get a little bit of nuance on the assault move rule. If it was costing them all of their movement points, so it was 4 movement points to move into there, they wouldn't be able to do it as an assault move. Situations like that might have to try to assault move into a woods hex which is uphill from the location that they're at the time. That would cost them 4 movement points, and they wouldn't be able to do that as an assault move. They would have to do it as a normal movement, which is slightly more vulnerable. But this is fine as an assault move, so they're a little bit safer here because they don't get that -1 for non-assault movement. The other benefit here that the Germans have is they've got 2 half squads, 2 relatively low value units. Now, as he moves into here, the Russians got to decide whether to fire at that move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if they choose to, and they can fire, they can have a multi-location fire group in 06. They could have both squads fire together. It'd be quite a powerful shot. You've got 4, 5, 6, double to 12. But it would be a 12 plus 1 because they're getting the benefit of the woods and they're not getting the -1 for non-assault move. And they would have used all of their sort of punch, if you like, on that first move. For all of their punch. They would have a subsequent fire shot potential if they don't cower at this unit when presumably that unit moves in. So the Russians have got to think carefully about whether they want to take this shot, which might be quite effective, or whether they want to kind of hang on for reducing a target. As a general rule, if something assault moves, it's probably worth waiting, because I'm not getting the benefit of firing at them in the movement phase because I'm not getting the non-assault move negative modifier, if that makes sense. So let's say for now that the Russians decide not to fire. Okay. This unit is also going to assault move into here. And the Russians again decide not to fire. And there's a number of reasons why they might be making that decision. Partly because it's a really good idea to keep concealment, but also because these guys haven't moved yet, and they, with the lead, right, the leader can, if he moves with the squads all of the way, provides a +2 to their movement factors. So this group here could CX, and they could move 8 movement. They could have 8 movement factors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They could move, right into the area of the farm. So it's probably worth the Russians trying to kind of like keep some fire options. So they haven't fired anything yet. These guys are going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're going to go. They've got 6 movement factors because the leader. They're going to go 1, 2 to there. 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're just moving to the edge of the this location here. Guys over here, right? Because they're back in the game. What are we going to do with them? Okay. So the guys, it'd be nice to get them into a position where they could fire on this hex. But if we start running across here, there is the risk that these guys will get a good shot at them. But if they do, they lose concealment and they're taking shots at a guy that's moving way over there and won't be taking shots at these half squads ready potentially to move into close combat in a minute. So the Germans are going to see if they can draw some fire. So they're going to go double time. Guess I should put this on. We're going to go 2 to here. Oh, well, that's a very tempting shot. 2, 3.5, 5, 6, and so far they've decided not to take. The Russians have decided not to fire. Actually, is that just craziness? That is probably craziness, actually. Okay, right. So what they'll do on 6, when he gets to there, this unit is going to lose concealment. He's going to fire the machine gun only down to here. It's going to be a 4. Sorry, it's going to be a 2. So only the machine gun firing, not the squad. It's going to be a -2 non-assault movement and movement in the open. And the if I just do this, it's a first fire, but only of the support weapon. The risk here is that the shot cowers, and this unit loses all fire options. But we're going to take the shot because a 2 down 2 is quite a good shot. Here we go. Right, so it cowers, so that's disastrous, but it's a very good shot because 2. So the 2 goes down to 1, but a 4 taking off the 2, the -2 becomes a 1 morale check. So the Germans have to take that 1 morale check, which is an 8, a final 8. They lose the CX and they break. But the guys at the top here are now final fire. They have no further fire options. Now the Russian plan in my head was that the guys upstairs on level 1 perhaps try and break one of these 2 half squads. The guys downstairs would remain concealed because that gives them significant benefit in close combat. Well, I'm not so sure what to do now. I could still reveal the bottom squad, lose concealment, and take an 8-up-1 against one of the squads. But the risk is that there's no effect, and both squads move in, and then I won't be concealed. I won't get the benefit of concealment in the close combat phase. So they're not going to fire. So that's movement complete. The German movement is completed. Everything's moved. We're not taking a shot from there. We can't take a shot from here. And we move on to defensive first fire. There's no defense. Sorry, this is defensive final fire. There's no defensive final fire because I want to keep concealment in here. And the guys at the top are already final fired because they're coward. Interestingly, if I'd left the leader there, they wouldn't have cowered, and I'd be in a much better position now. Next phase is the advancing fire phase. This German group obviously can't see anybody, but these two can. So they're going to fire into this building, forming a multi-hex fire group. They have 2 and 2 is 4. It's halved and doubled. Halved is advancing fire, doubled for point blank. So it's a 4, but it's halved again because the guys that they're firing at are concealed. Now they have got a choice here. I suppose they could attack the guys upstairs, they wouldn't be halved again, or they can attack the concealed guys. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove the concealment. So they're going to fire downstairs. It's going to be a 2 plus 2. Now here's why the sniper's really important. Okay, if I look at a 2 plus 2, if I roll a double 2, if the Germans roll a double 2, they'll cower, and it'll go down to there. Okay, and it'll be like a 4 on a 2. It's not a great shot. A 3 wouldn't cower, but they still have to add the 2, be a normal morale check. So essentially a 2 or 3 is going to give them a morale check. A 4 give them Pintas check, which actually would be pretty good if because the Russian defenders would definitely lose concealment. Pintas check does lose concealment, as does all these results, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the concealment. The danger is that as it's a relatively poor shot, 2 plus 2, there is a danger that they activate the sniper and don't actually achieve anything very good. But they're going to go for it anyway. So they've rolled a 7, which I think, if you can remember from here, if we had 2 and 9, it's no effect at all. Okay, that's the advanced fire phase complete. We now go to routes. Germans first. So the Germans have only one route to consider, and indeed, let's get the final fire counters off as well. And it's this one. Right. He has to move to the nearest wood or building. This is the nearest wood or building. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's actually equidistant to a known enemy unit. So if they want to, the Germans could ignore this wood because it's the same. I'm not moving any further away, basically, from the Russian sort of danger. And I could choose instead to go back to this one. But I think we're going to go for it. We're going to just get ourselves into that wood there. Okay. And the Russians have no routes. Okay. Interestingly, the Russians have managed to keep this unit from being DM. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute because it's not quite the end of the German turn yet, is it? Right, so it's the advanced phase. Okay, so every unit can move forward 1. So the Germans are going to take a chance. They're going to move into close combat. They're going to move into the same hex as this Russian concealed unit. The German squads that are moving in are a little bit anxious because what they don't want to do is take a shot against everything that kind of everything breaks in a kind of cataclysmic shot. So they got the medium machine gun over there with a leader who can fire into this hex. It can fire into this hex. This one over here can only fire into this hex, and we're going to see what happens. Later on, they might have to survive a prep fire shot from the Russians. It depends on what happens here, but they're trying to spread out a little bit, is what I'm trying to say, to make it that they're not vulnerable to sort of like one sort of lucky shot, if you like, that breaks everything. So that's their advances. Next phase. Right, now strictly speaking, we should have marked this hex here with a close combat counter, not the whole hex, because obviously upstairs they're not in close combat. Notice this unit, these German units moving in here, do not DM this Russian squad in P6 because they're on different levels. It wouldn't be possible for them theoretically to advance from downstairs in 06 into upstairs P6. It's essentially 2 moves to do that. Okay, so the close combat. So how do we do close combat? So the first thing is, if it's in a building, or it's in a woods, or if one or both of the units is concealed, you have an ambush roll. Now, I don't know if I can find quickly the ambush time charts on here. Okay, close combat. Here we go. So, ambush. Both sides roll 1 dice, but there are various modifiers. And if one side rolls less than the enemy die roll by 3 or more, then that side has ambushed the other side. Okay, so I'm not going to go through what all the modifiers are right now, but in this instance, the Germans don't have any modifiers. The Russians get the benefit of a -2 for being concealed. Okay, if there was leadership in there, that could be a part of it. If one was pinned, that could be a part of it. There are various things that can count. So this die roll is for the attacker. This is the German dice roll. That's pretty good. They've rolled a 1. The Russians rolled a 4, but they subtract 2 from it, so they've rolled a 2. Now there isn't a difference of 3, so there is in fact no ambush in this situation. Okay. Now I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit smaller. Actually, let's just move it out of the way for now. So the Germans are going to attack the Russians in 0-6, and the Russians got some choices. The Russians could attack both German squads, so they could attack. So it's 4v4, so it would be the Russians could make a 1-to-1 attack against both on a 5 or less. They would cause casualties to the Germans. They could attack 1, in which case the Russians would be attacking one German squad at 2-to-1, and then the kill number is a 7. Or they could choose to keep concealment. They'd still get attacked by the Germans, but the German attack would be halved in effectiveness, and at the end of the turn, the Russians would still be concealed, were they to survive the close combat attack. For the sake of keeping things relatively simple and going through like the sort of the main things, the Russians are going to declare that they're going to attack, so they lose concealment immediately. Both Germans will attack the Russians at 1-to-1, and if you remember, the kill number for that is a 5. So we roll the dice. Close combat. I think it's a close combat one. Yep. Okay, so that's way above 5, so they haven't done any harm at all. The Russians are going to attack back. They're going to attack the whole lot, so they need a 5. And actually, they've rolled lower than the to kill number, which means all of them are killed. Incidentally, had they equaled the to kill number, there would only have been a casualty reduction. So basically one of the half squads would have died. So that was a very fortunate roll for the Russians. Good timing for it as well. And that will be the end of the close combat phase. The Germans are not gaining concealment. Next phase is the beginning of the Russian turn 2. So we're trying to do this a little bit quickly. So no concealment growth. Russians roll for wind. No change to the wind. The Russians try to rally this unit here. He needs a 7, but he's got the -1 for the leader, and he's also got a -1 for the building. So a 9 will bring this guy back. Things seem to be going quite well for the Russians. Nothing in that hex. The Germans can't do anything, but they do lose DM in that hex. So that's the rally phase finished. Prep fire phase. Now this is really, really difficult because the Russians have certainly got a good shot. Certainly do some damage into the Germans by firing into these hexes. But if that fire is ineffective, well, the danger then is that the shooting coming back is going to be really, really dangerous. So, for the sake of trying to show you the sort of things that can be done, we're going to do something. We're going to do something different here. Okay. First off, we're not going to prep fire. I think in reality I probably would, but we're not going to prep fire. So we're going to move to movement. The guys downstairs feel very, very vulnerable. They've got a huge shot coming back at them. So they're going to assault move 1 hex back like that. Now, that means that this whole group up here can't see them. It's going straight through this wooden building, so they can't see that movement. Nobody can fire it. They can't fire at those guys. And they're going to be able to get a sneaky, assuming that they're in good order, advancing fire shot into this guy over here. DM him. These guys can fire, but as it's an assault move, there's no benefit to them firing in the movement phase. And this group are going to get the full benefit of the stone wall, because the line of sight from here to here crosses the vertex of the 3 hex of the points where the wall. So basically, the wall protects them because it's going down that line, just touching the wall. So at best, these guys are going to have an 8 up 2, which is much better than a 16 up 2. Much more survivable for the Russians. The guys upstairs, and you've got the guys over there. Oh, incidentally, he should have lost concealment, because when he tried to rally the squad, he was in line of sight of that unit there. So they haven't got. They don't have the concealment. Okay, these guys are going to assault move downstairs, and that's to make a little bit of space. So these guys can assault move over to here. That hex is currently empty, and that's the Russian turn. Now the Germans could have fired at some of that movement, but they've held off, and they're waiting for the final fire phase, or the defensive fire phase as it's properly called. So this group here can only see this hex. It needs to decide if it's going to fire upstairs or downstairs. A couple of reasons they're going to fire upstairs. Partly because the -1 leader gives downstairs a little bit of extra protection if he gets a morale check, but also because it'd be quite nice to break the units carrying the light machine gun. Okay, so we have 4 firepower for the squad, we've got 5 for the medium machine gun, so we're going to round that down to it's 9, round down to an 8, -1, but they get a +2 for being in the wooden building, so it's going to be an 8 + 1. 8 + 1. Right, so it's going to be no effect. It's interesting because on a 6/6, it's very close to a 6/6, it would have malfunctioned the machine gun, but no effect there for the Germans. Guys over here, they're going to final fire as well, and they are obviously going to fire at this unit here because they can't see the guys in the building. And they got 8, and it's going to be +2. 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 on an 8 is, I believe, a Pintas check. 9 on an 8. Oh, hang on. What am I? 9 on an 8 is a Pintas check. Right, so a pin is nowhere near as bad as a possible break. Pin task check means they have to take a task check. They want to roll equal to or lower than their morale, really. 7 they do, so actually they have no ill effects. If they'd failed it, they would have become pinned, which would mean that any shot they take after this would be halved. It's already halved because it would be advancing fire, but also it would be halved because they're pinned. But the other really big impact of it is they lose their chance to advance, and that could be quite consequential here. The last thing the Russians want is to lose their chance to just ideally position their units for the next German turn. So very little impact from the German fire. I think the Russians were a little bit lucky there. Moving on to advancing fire phase. Okay, so this guy here is going to fire into here. He's got 2 because it's advancing fire, +1, and Russians aren't even that bothered really about the effect of it. 6, 7 on a 2, that's going to be no effect, but it will DM this guy. Okay, so that makes him much less likely to come back in a minute. Okay, I need to just zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, I think people in this hex can fire down this hex spine, and it doesn't touch the grain even on the ground floor. So this group here are going to form a multi-location fire group. They're not going to fire the light machine gun. They're going to fire the 2 infantry squads. 4 add 4 is 8, halved because it's advancing fire to a 4. So they're going to fire 4 up 1 into there. We're not going to fire the light machine gun because it wouldn't improve the odds of that attack at all, and there would be the risk of rolling a double 6, as I was talking about before, and malfunctioning light machine gun. But actually this particular machine gun has a breakdown number of 11, so it's actually much more likely to break down than the higher quality German machine gun over there. So this shot is a 4 +1 into there. Here we go. Right, they roll quite low. 4 +1, 5. So I'm just going to get this a little bit bigger. 5 on a 4. This is exactly the sort of thing the Germans were scared of. A 1 morale check against their most important group. I don't know what just happened, but I think we're back. Okay. So 1 morale check. So the leader has to roll a morale check, and he has to add 1 to his roll. 7, 8. Well, his morale is 9, so he's okay. The squad needs to roll a 7. They need to add 1 to the dice roll because it's 1 morale check, but they need to subtract 1 also because of the leader that's giving them some protection. And they've rolled less than a 7, so they're okay. 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 That's the end of the Russian advancing fire phase. It's now the rout phase. The Russians have got nothing broken. Let's take off some counters here. So we've got prep fires off and defensive fires off. But this squad here can rout. This one can't because he is not DM, but this one can. So let's move him back towards another wood. He's got a better chance of perhaps of rallying there without interference from the intact Russian forces inside the building. Okay, next up is the advance phase. Okay, now we have an opportunity to move back into positions to slow the Russians down. What we don't really want to do is put too much forward. If we put all of our force forward, the Germans have got a very powerful force here. 1 prep fire shot, and the Russians are all over the place. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to advance him to there, and we're going to take this squad down the stairs with its light machine gun as its advance, and this one upstairs. So what we're trying to do is keep all of them in different locations so that, you know, a lucky shot isn't going to break everything, but also we're trying to have firepower in different directions. If the Germans try to move this way, we can fire from upstairs. If they come around this way, whichever way they go, we've got different units can fire on them, giving the Russians a lot of fire options. And that will be the end of the advance phase. We move to the close combat phase. There's no close combat this time. Final bit of the close combat phase is concealment growth. All Russian units can be seen by German units. Okay, so we move now to turn 3, access. So this is the last full turn of the game that we're going to play. Once we get to turn 4, and the Germans just have that sort of one opportunity. So basically, the Germans got 2 opportunities now to completely capture this building. Right, first up is wind. And there is no change to the wind. Then there's rallies. Russians don't get to rally. Germans go first anyway. They're going to try to self-rally this unit. Rally on a 7. Nope, so that they could have done with him coming back, to be fair. Now, what do the Germans want to achieve this time? See, moving is very dangerous. If they move into this hex, you know, they got a lot of point blank fire. Very, very dangerous. Moving this way, similar. You know, they can even get fired at from here. They need to get into the building. They can't move into the building because this unit's in the way. So, they're going to prep fire. Really needing to break or destroy this unit. Probably more interesting to fire from here and keep these units for movement. Okay, they could of course all fire together, but they're going to take the shot. So we got 4 and 5 is 9, double is 18, rounded down to 16, 16 against this unit here, plus 2, minus 1, so it's 16 plus 1. Doesn't cower because it's leader-led. So we've rolled a 6 plus 1, 7. 7 on the 16 is a 2 morale check. So that's quite a punchy attack against this unit here. Morale check. Rolled a 4. Add 2, 5, 6. No effect. And this is the kind of reason that prep fire, although it can be so impactful on the game, it's also so risky. It's a powerful unit now, has very little things left to do in the game, in this turn I mean, and its shot was ineffective. Now I think it's going to be almost suicidal to move these guys, you know, in the open here. We're almost forced, the Germans are almost forced to continue the prep fire now and hope for a result. So this shot will be 16 plus 2, which is 8, which is a 10. A 10 on a 16 is a normal morale check. And right, they fail it disastrously. Okay, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's actually like they failed it by 4. I don't want to talk about ELR in this game, but when you fail by more than a certain number, and that number is different in every scenario, you go down to a lower quality unit. I think this ELR. I think this unit would have ELR'd in a normal game. So you see they've gone down to a conscript squad. They're only now 426. Their morale's really low. Their range is pitiful, and they would break as well. Okay, so that's the prep fire phase. We're in the movement phase. No German units can move because they're all broken, or that DM should have come off by the way, or prep fired. It's now the defensive fire phase. Now the Russians do have some fire options because the Russians in P6 can see the units in 05, and they're going to fire at them. Defenses go straight to final fire. Don't get that first fire, final fire thing in the defensive fire phase. That's a feature of the movement phase. 2 squads are going to fire at 05 here. I can't use the leadership modifier because they're in different places. I'm not going to fire the machine gun for the same reason I gave before. So this is going to be an 8 plus 1. So it's a 7 plus 1 is an 8. An 8 on an 8 is a normal morale check. Okay. Normal morale check. So the leader first. Right, so the leader breaks. Now, he doesn't get the benefit of the leadership modifier. So he's a 7, and we're adding 1 to the dice roll. A 6 actually passes it. Okay, he then has to take a pin task check because the leader breaking with him, if he has higher morale than the units of there, has to take a task check, which he fails. So in fact, that unit is now pinned. That means they won't be able to advance into this hex next time. That might not be such a bad, thing. Okay, so that's the end of defensive fire. Now it's the advancing fire phase. The Germans haven't got any because they fired everything they could. Now it's the rout phase. Okay, now it's the Axis turn. This unit here has to rout because he's adjacent to units there. So he is going to move. What he really wants to do is move back to here. 1, 2, 3, 4. See. Okay, let's just zoom in a little bit. The most obvious way for him to go, if I just take a random counter, would be to go to here. But there's a danger that he is in open ground with a unit being able to sort of see him here. Yeah. So it means he might have to risk interdiction. So we're going to go back to here. And we can take prep fire counters off. And indeed defensive fire counters. Right, can the Russian units see that routing leader? No. Okay, so that's not a shot. That's just that if he is routing in line of sight of good order Russian units, he'd have to take a morale check, and there'd be quite bad consequences for a broken leader, sort of failing that. He goes back into the woods. He makes it back there. Just changing the order there because obviously only the leader's DM. This Russian unit also needs to rout. And this is getting difficult. There's not many places left for him to go. He doesn't really want to leave the building because he can still have some effect by being there even broken, and of course he might rally. Probably the best thing is to move him back to the leader. Okay, so let's just open this up a little bit. Should be like that. Okay. Yeah, that's where they're going to go. So he's with the leader, improves the chance that that guy's going to come back into the game. To be fair, conscripts don't generally make a big habit of coming back into the game. Okay, so that's the routs complete. We're now in the advance phase. Right, these guys can't advance because they are pinned, but these can. So they're going to be moving into 06. Now they need to be very, very conscious that by moving into 06, they're going to be adjacent to the downstairs guys in P6, which includes a squad, light machine gun, and a -1 leader. They are going to be able to prep fire 12 plus 1 into 06, putting both eligible German squads into 06 might be considered risky. So they're going to put 1 in, and that one's going to go to there. He can fire on this hex. These guys can fire on this hex, and this is the assault squad, if you like, moving in to try and take the building. You might have hoped the Germans to be a little bit stronger at this point. They've had quite poor luck for the most part. Okay, so that's the advance phase. There's going to be no close combat, and there is no concealment growth. All of these units can be seen by Russians. All of these units are broken. So it is now the Allied rally phase. So we begin with a win task check. We then have a chance for rallies. The guys down here, right, so they rally on a 5, but I've got to add 4 to the dice roll, but subtract 2, 1 for the building, 1 for the leader. So I need a 5, but I've got to add 2. 5 plus 2. 4, 5, 6, not quite enough. Doesn't lose the DM because they're adjacent. Right, these guys, because it's the Allied phase, the Axis can't self-rally, but leaders always can. You see how that leader there has a box around his broken morale? That means he can always attempt to rally, even in the opponent's turn. So he's a 9, but I've got to add 4 because he's DM, another 1 because it's a self-rally, so I'm +5, -1 because it's a self-rally terrain, the woods, so he needs a 9 plus 4. Right, okay, he didn't come back. If he had come back, it was by no means impossible, he would have had a chance to see if he could rally this guy as well. Okay, we are in the prep fire phase, the last Russian prep fire phase. Everything has got to be about trying to break this unit, and spreading out again into the building just make it really difficult for the the Germans to take all the locations. So we're going to prep fire downstairs. Downstairs from this hex into this hex, we've got 4, 5, 6 doubled for point blank. It's a 12 +2 for the wooden building, -1 for the leader, 12 +1. This is going to feel like a very significant shot for this game. 6, 7, 8, another one, 9. 9 on a 12 is a normal morale check. Okay, so this is the German squad's morale check, and they pass it. Okay. Cool. Right, so now it's movement. No, it's not movement. We're still thinking about taking some further shots. Now, what they could have done instead is try to assault move out of the building and then later move back into the building in the advance phase. Oh, by the way, that pin came off. But there probably isn't anywhere completely safe outside of the building, so it's probably best to stay in and take that prep fire shot. Right, the guys upstairs only got 4 firepower, but they're going to take a shot into here. They can't fire into there. They could fire into here, but they got +2. They got a better defensive TEM than this group here. But also, these guys here, have the medium machine guns. So if we break those, that's even more effective. The alternative is 1, 2, 3, 4 is to fire at these. That's tempting, because this group here are not DM. They're almost set to come back in the German turn 4 and are going to be a part of the final turn assault on this building. But I think it would be nice to try and do some damage to that. So this shot is going to be a 4 +1. Here we go, no effect. Okay, cool. So, movement phase. Everything is prep fired, so there's no movement. Defensive final fire. Okay, right, Germans get a chance to shoot back. Okay, so they're going to start with this group here. And what are we going to fire into? We could potentially fire all of this into the ground or upstairs of this hex. I think that feels like a good idea. So they're going to fire. They're going to fire. They're going to fire. They've all got line of sight to this hex. Leader won't be able to lead this, but we have 1 squad, 2 squads, 3 squads. This one's doubled, so it's effectively 4 squads. We got 16 +5. That's 21. 21 +2 into the ground floor of P6. Okay, so there we go. All right, does cower. Okay, and we've rolled a 6. So let's look at the table. So it's not the 20; it goes down to the 16. We rolled a 6. We've got to add 2, 7, 8. 8 on the 16 is a 1 morale check. See, because it cowered, it would have been a 2 morale check. It's 1 morale check. Okay, leader has to go first. Morale check. Okay, right. Okay, so I thought this game was nearly over, but we got to do heat of battle. Okay, Right, so when you roll a double 1 on a morale check, you get something called Heat of Battle. You can see it here. We have to roll 2 dice, and there's various results. If you are elite, it's -1. That's a leader. Leaders are always elite, so it's a -1 to the dice roll. Broken or inexperienced, neither. Not French, not partisan. Russian, +2. So we have to add 1 to the dice roll, and it's against this set of results here. Remember, ASL low is good. So let's see what happens. 2 dice, 6. It's gone to a 7, and a 7 is battle harden. Okay, so with a leader, when they battle harden, they go up to the next leader. So heat of battle harden. He's just become a 9-1. Okay, so it's actually just improved the effectiveness of this force. But these guys here still have to take the 1 morale check. That's right. But they've got the protection of their leader. They pass, but they activate the German sniper. So 5, it's ineffective. Okay. That's amazing. That could so. Oh, sorry. We've also got to do the broken guys. I've lost my. See what if I shut that down, bring this over. Right, they're a 5, so they're very likely to be in trouble here. Morale check. They've rolled a 5. It was a 1 check, wasn't it? So they're fine. They're fine. Okay. Very, very unlucky for the Germans that wasn't more effective. That's probably cost them the game. Next phase is the advance phase. Okay, clear the counters a little bit. Here we go. Right, now, it might be... Okay, so there's so this is advancing fire, isn't it? Sorry, they've already fired. Okay, it's now rout phase. Okay, so pretty much the only safe place, safe is a relative term for this unit to rout, is up the stairs. So he routes up the stairs, and he's in this building. He'll be in this building, broken for the final, almost certainly broken for the final part of the game. Now, in order to keep control of the building, the Russians need to have a multi-man counter in that building somewhere. It doesn't even matter if they're broken. So the Russian strategy is going to be to protect this broken unit upstairs in P7 while having a good order unit downstairs and a good order unit upstairs in 06. That's the only way that the Germans can kind of get to that hex. We're trying to sort of block it off. So the advance is going to be like this. The good orders squad is going to go there. The squad with the machine gun is going to stay there. Yeah, that's it. That's how we're going to do it. Okay. That's the advance phase. Now it's the close combat phase, and there's no close combat here because these two units are at different levels of the building. And then we move to the rally phase of turn 4. So it's the Axis now, final turn. Okay, so this is for the game. Okay, so first off, let's roll for wind. No changes. Rallies. This guy here is going to try and rally. 6 he does. He needs less than or equal to 7, so he rallies. The leader needs a 9. Remember, +1 for self-rally, -1 for rally terrain. He's back, which means he can attempt to rally this guy, who now is going to rally on a 7, 8, on a 9. Rally terrain and leader. Fails. Okay. Wow. So, I'm just trying to work out if there is any way for the Germans still to win this scenario. They have to capture all of the hexes. I think they have to get a way into the building, and then they need to be able to run. They need to either KIA the Russian in 06 so that German units can run up the stairs and force the broken units in 06 to rout. Okay, that would work. Or they need to KIA the units in P6 so they can do the same thing from the other direction and then advance in to kill the last one. So it's worth saying it's not looking great. Okay. One possibility is that this squad and this squad try to break everything, and then the squad here can use a rule called I can't remember what it's called. When you clear a building, basically it's a prep fire shot, and if every enemy unit in the building is broken, you can sort of do the equivalent of a prep fire action where you kind of take them all prisoner and you be in control of the building. I think that is actually their best chance winning this game. So these guys here are going to prep fire into downstairs P6. So this is going to be an 8 plus 2. Bring this over. 8 plus 2. 9 on an 8. 9 on an 8 is a Pintas check. So they can take it, they pass it because their morale, like that's the leader passes it, and then the squad pass it. I think that is probably it. I think the game is over. We've got a prep fire shot from over here. That's going to go into here. That's going to be an 8 up 2. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on 8 is a 1 check. So this unit here breaks. Okay. Right, now movement. Now this guy's going to have to rout away. The Russians, the position doesn't look good for the Russians in this building, but I can't see how the Germans can stop. Sorry, I can't see how the I can't see how the Germans can take this building this turn. Okay, the Russians can stop them doing it this turn, and that's all they have to do to win the game. Because we can't advance into that final upper story position of P6. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, normally in a game, I would resign if I was the Germans. I'd say, look, I can't see any way of getting in there, so I'm going to resign. But for the sake of playing this through, we'll play it through. So unit in here can't move anywhere, so we're going to prep fire him as well. Be nice to at least see all the Russians broken. So it's going to be an 8 up 2 into P6. 5, 6, 7 on an 8 is a 1 morale check. So the leader fails it, and he's got higher morale than the other guys in there. Break. And 1 morale check from the other guy. Well, first, he has to do a Pintas check because the high morale unit broke. So task check, he passes that. Then the +1 morale check. He fails it and he LRs. Okay, that's cool. Right, so most of the German force has now broken. All of the Russian force is now broken. Should be on the prep fire phase. Shall we go to the movement phase? None of these German units can move. They've all prep fired. He can. 1, 2, 3.5. Yeah. So he can go 1, 2, 3.5 to here. He'll be able to advance into P6 in a minute. This guy here is going to go 1, bypass 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice I didn't declare CX, but I can declare CX late, like after I've started moving, and gain +1 instead of the +2 that you would get if you'd done it from the beginning. Okay, and that's the end of the movement phase. Everything's moved. There's going to be no defensive final fire because every single Russian unit is broken. Then there is going to be an advancing fire moment, so there is a possibility of, well, there isn't really, is there? This guy can advancing fire into here. It's going to aim to kill the upstairs guys. 4 halved and doubled, half for advancing fire, double for point blank range, so it's a 4 +2 +3 because I'm CX. 4 +3. That's not going to have an effect. That's the advancing fire complete. Now it's the rout phase. Now everything that the Russians have is going to have to rout. Yeah, okay, so this guy will route back to here. This guy is going to go up there. This guy can take his light machine gun with him. He's going to route up the stairs. They're all DM. Don't need that now. And it is that's the routes done. There's no routes for the Germans. Going to lose all prep fire counters, take off the move things, and we're going to go to the advance phase. Now all that's going to happen is that he's going to go to level 1. So he's now adjacent to all of those guys. He's going to go onto the ground floor, and he's going to go onto the ground floor. So it looks like this, probably makes sense to move him in as well, and just to make double sure, move them into there. So we have reached the close combat phase, and you will notice that there are a whole stack of broken units still in the farmhouse. They're not in close combat, so Germans don't get a chance to kill them in the close combat phase. They are broken, but they still qualify as preventing the Germans from controlling the building, which means that at the end of German turn 4, it is a Russian victory. Well, I hope that's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there are questions about rules, please feel free to post them, and me or Dave will try to get back to you, or possibly other subscribers or other people watching. And hopefully, if people seem to enjoy these and so forth, we'll try to do more in the future. As we work through them, probably we won't have quite that level of detail. I think each sort of scenario that we do kind of like focus on different kind of aspects. I'm certainly not going to be showing people how to do, IFE attack, every single IFE attack that we did today in the future. But I think I hope that's been useful to people. So thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.